Hey Fannies, welcome to the Stamp Anything channel, and today I'm going to be coloring a new image from the March release, Wild About You, and I have the Mowgli image here right with me, and I've got it nice and zoomed in for you so you can follow along while I color. I'm going to be using our normal skin tones minus a few of the extra zeros. I'm not going to use the 000 or the quad 0 because we want to keep his skin tone a little bit deeper. Now I did go ahead and stamp him out, and I actually stamped him out in a dark brown, and then I just used my Memento dual marker in Tuxedo Black just to add detail back into his hair and his pupils. So I just added it to the stamp and then just re-stamped it with my stamping platform, and I used the Misty. So I do apologize if my hands look kind of janky under this kind of magnification. It don't look so nice. So we're going to be using our E04, our E11, our E21, our E00, and our R20 for this skin tone and for his tongue color. So I'm going to do something a little bit different today, which is I'm going to start with my R20. So I'm going to start my R20 because I want to make sure that I have his cheek color and that rosiness built up under his skin tone already, because the R20 is a little bit lighter, and sometimes what it likes to do is suck up or move the color a little bit. So I'm just going to really layer it in there just a little bit. So for now, we've given him a pink 5 o'clock shadow, and that's totally okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my E00. So again, we're going to go in with one of our lighter markers first, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make his outlines for around his eyes, just so I don't mess up later. And I just want to make sure I have like a clear idea of where I want that to be. So I'm going to go around the top, move my paper to where it's easier. And I've kind of gone around that eye. And now this one here only has the white showing just kind of on the one side. So we're going to start this over top, go in between, and just swing around here. And come up that side right there. So just this side has stayed white. And just to make sure that I've got that in the right spot, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go in with my colorless blender right here. No. Sorry about that. My little doggy heard something. So I'm just going to make sure that... Baby. Sorry about that. This is what happens when you color and try to do it without doing a voiceover. You get some background noise sometimes. So I apologize for that. I promise she's sweet. Alright, so now I've kind of got my eyes situated and the white where I want it. I've got that underlying pink tone that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go in with my E04 first. So that's that lipstick natural. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my image around. Now we've got dog yawns happening in the background. Not sure if that got picked up by the mic, but I guess we'll see on a playback later. So right here, I'm coming right down from the hair and from where his bangs come in, and I'm coming right across his cheek. And I'm going to go right across his chin, right to the middle point, right to under his mouth right there. Spin my image back around once more, and I'm going to kind of right inside the nose and under that little nostril here. I'm going to go over the lines that Annie drew in for us. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create shadow right under his neck here, and I'm going to go and I'm going to follow it down his arm into these two fingers. I'm going to go into these two fingers here under his arm and stop. This little line at his arm here. Now he's got a little loincloth thing on here, so it's going to create shadow from that. I'm going to start on his little toe, come up his heel, and the back of his calf. Right here we can see kind of like that little padded part of his foot, so we're going to color right into those toes underneath his heel. And again, we're going to come up the back of his calf, around that little loincloth, and under it to create that shadow. Now here under his arm, we're going to do the same thing. Under, across his back, and a little bit towards his belly right there. So after the E04, we're going to put our E11 in next. So here's our E11, our barley beige. So now we're going to start to slowly bring the skin tone down. Out. And here you really want to make sure that you're not going into that eye area. So I'm going to make sure I kind of go over this here. I'm going to swing it out over this cheek area now, and under and right across, and then back up. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue that line around the eye. Kind of giving that white of the eye a wide berth here. There we go. So usually we would just be using this to blend out some of that E04. I'm going over his entire flesh right now, just to make sure that I have him having a deeper skin tone, because when Rudyard Kipling wrote the Jungle Book, he had it take place in India, so his skin tone here would be darker and tan. It would not just be light and just kind of like Caucasian. So right now I am showing you how you can layer your Copics to get a deeper skin tone without necessarily having to change what you use sometimes. So right there you can see we kind of have that first layer in of that E11. And then our next marker up is going to be our E21. So with our E21, that's our soft sun. Put that right up here so you can see our E21 soft sun. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of blend over from the right side of his face. And again into his hands and his arms. And now I'm trying to spread that color over. Now we are going to be doing 2 layers with the skin tone here, because the first layer here is just going to, I'm going to say we're mapping out where we want everything to go. And especially if you want the skin tone to look a little bit deeper, more tanned, you're definitely going to want to layer that up. All right, so after the E21, we're going to be using our E00. That's our skin white. And that I'm going to just use on only the left-hand side of his body. And I'm just going to kind of pull that back from the outside edge and into the top of his fingers. Just a little bit highlight into that arm. And a little bit on this side of his face. And that is our first coat. So now for coat 2, we're going to go put that rosy color back into his cheek again with that R20, which is our blush. And again, I'm putting it in kind of thick and heavier, giving him back that pink 5 o'clock shadow, because again, we're going to be kind of covering over it. So I just want that hint of it to kind of still be there. So back in with our E04, so that lipstick natural again. And again, I'm going to flip my paper around just so it makes it easier for me. So now I'm bringing that E04 down a little bit further now. And again, into the nose and the nostril. And then beside his eye, going to flip him around. I'm going to go into his fingers there. Collarbone, neck. Under the arm and into the belly. You can see here I am being a little bit more heavy-handed now that I know exactly where I want it to go, and because I want to create some more depth in there. So that is our E04. Now you can see up here, it looks a little blotchy. I need to replace my tips. And once it goes shiny like that, it means time to replace your marker nib, your brush nib there. So E11, I'm going to go over. Yeah, and you can see that's kind of, fortunately, made a little bit of a boo-boo there. So I'm going in with this E11 and going over everything. And here as well. And I'm not being shy with my pressure either. Because I really want to make sure I get that ink in there. That pigment to go exactly where I want it. And I'm kind of using the circular motion just to make sure I'm blending that color out the way I want. So there we have our layer with our E11. Next, I'm going to go in with our E21. So that is our soft sun. And just make sure my nib's okay. And here I'm going to bring that over from the right hand side of his face here. I don't want to go completely over to his left hand side. So just like that. And then our E00. And that I'm just going to keep to his left hand side a little bit. unless I see anywhere that I feel like needs just a little bit more blending. But other than that, this is just where I want the more highlighted area of his face to be. I'm going to put a quick little layer into his tongue, because I'm going to do his tongue next. And I'm going to use this a little bit over here on this side, just to get that to soften out and blend a little bit more. Now, in the camera, everything is very exaggerated, so I'm going to kind of show you an after picture as well at the end of this video, because this is beyond what your normal vision is seeing. Like, you are seeing a very blown up vision, or sorry, blown up image of this stamp. But when you do take it like further away, which I can't really move it back, it does look more natural, and the coloring blends better to the human eye, because right now you're kind of seeing some very exaggerated colors a little bit, but it's just kind of help you to see where I'm placing them. So for his tongue, which I'm not going to forget about, I'm going to do EO4. I'm going to do that right across the bottom here. And then I'm going to go in with my R20 and just blend that in. Just like so. And now we've got his skin tone all complete. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to quick go with my colorless blender just to make sure kind of got the eyes where I want them. All right. So next up, we're going to move on to Mowgli's hair, and in the end, we'll add some of those eye highlights and make them pop as well. So for his hair, we're going to be using C10. We're going to be using B99, B97, B95, and C2. So we're using a bunch of colors here, but we're going to give Mowgli some kind of blue-black hair, kind of make it look a little bit more animated, a little more cartoony. So we're going to start with that C10, our cool gray number 10. And I'm going to put it just to where I want the darker areas of his hair to be. So it's going to be right in the bottom. And I'm just going to try and use small flicks. Now, when using the C10, I think it's one of the best examples of the gray markers, because the C10 is the cool gray number 10, so it's the darkest in the grays. But when you are using it, it really does kind of have that cool blue ashy tone to it when you're using it. I'm not 100% sure if it will show up on camera or not, but it definitely does. So if you've used it, you'll know. Now I'm going to create kind of a little part line here. So I'm going to swing that into kind of like that bang section here a little bit, and then a little bit out, so he's got kind of a part in his hair. And then I'm going to swing it around, and I'm going to do the other side. Just so we can kind of keep direction to his hair on either side. So next up is going to be my B99. So that is that agate color, which is the very dark blue. So again, I'm going to come up. And I do want to keep it dark underneath here. And up from those little bang sections here. So you can see I'm being a little bit more heavy-handed with this color and with my first two colors here. That is because I don't want his hair to read overly blue. So if I want to make sure that doesn't happen, I want to make sure that I am using enough of the dark blues before I add in the progressively lighter blues. So next up, we're going into the B97. So this is our night blue. And here, if I'm seeing any white now down in the ends, I'm going to kind of go over that. And here you can see I'm just extending it slightly past those lines I already colored. It's not a whole lot that I'm adding in here. And then again, just going to come off to the side a bit. And swing it around. Same here. So that was our B97. Finally, our B95 is kind of our lightest of our blues before we go back in with some gray. So that's our B95. So this is light grayish cobalt. In here, I'm going to continue to flick. Now this is our connecting color, which finishes where the main highlights are kind of showing up in little Mowgli's hair here. Don't worry if some of the lines look a little awkward here. We are going to fix them. Then finally with my C2, not adding it everywhere, but in some of the places. So this is where I'm going to go back in, and I decided to go back in with my C10. So I'm just going to touch up some of these areas up here where I want that dark part to kind of extend out of again. And now I'm going to skip over to the B97. And from the B97, I'm going to go to the 95 again. And we're going to need that to dry a bit, but there we have his hair. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a few strokes with some ink here. So this is an Oohoo fine line drawing pen, and this one's just called B. I think that means just for brush nib, so it's giving us a really fine brush nib to work with, which I like. So if I want, I can add like a few little extra sprigs of stuff to his hair. So there we have Mowgli's hair all done. So now we've got to color his loincloth. So for his loincloth, I've decided to use E08, YR18, YR15, and YR12. So that is brown, sanguine, pumpkin yellow, and liquat. Very interesting names. If anybody would know, I don't know, is liquat a fruit? Is that like kumquat? Is it liquat? I don't know. So E08 is actually just our Copic brown. So our Copic brown, I'm going to try and go just inside those lines a bit. So I'm leaving a little bit of white on the outside. My next color is going to be that sanguine YR18. And I'm just kind of going over them and extending. Our YR15, which is our pumpkin yellow. And I'm using this to soften and kind of blend these colors a little bit more. And then my YR12, that Laquat. Now this is going to be my fill-in color, and then it's going to go right outside that white there that we had left in his little loincloth. So now that I've got that, I am going to add one more layer, and I'm going to try and be very careful. Sorry, I just bumped my camera. That's what happens when you've got a camera hanging like right in front of your face. Apologize for that, folks. There we go. So again, trying to go in even finer this time. Just because I want this color to be nice and rich is why I want to go over it a little bit more. I'm actually really liking this color combo, I must say. So here I'm using this one a little bit more, a little heavier onto that right hand side to make sure it stays a little bit deeper than my left hand side. So that YR12, it's going to go back into here just to do that final blend. And to make sure this kind of stays my lighter side of my image. Now that we've got him all nice and colored, I'm going to go in. So usually I do use a white Posca marker. Because this image is so small and I know it's like really blown up here, I'm just going to use my Jelly Roll pen in white to do his highlights in his eyes, and decided to give him 3 little eye highlights there. And then I can add a few little highlights into his hair as well. Right on the tongue there. I'm gonna let that dry for a second. And then I'm gonna go over those with my C2 Copic. There we go. So here is our completed Mowgli image. I hope that you like him, and stay tuned to the end of the video so you can see him taking a picture at a normal distance and not super zoomed in like we have it right now. So thanks for watching, and remember to stamp it, color it, and love it.